I was just so impressed once again with Bernie Sanders. I'm ready here to fight and take it all the way.
I was really moved. I unfortunately used to be a very heavy smoker, and I had a heart attack a few years ago. And while I was in hospital on morphine, my hospital sent a bill collector to my bedside that she identified herself as a medical social worker. And I found out a day or two later she was actually the hospital's bill collector. And she advised me to fill out this paperwork to help, because I was uninsured, to help me get insurance. So thank goodness I survived the heart attack. But about 2 weeks later, when I called, I had been released from the hospital, and I called to make my follow-up appointment. I was told by the surgeon who gave me a stent that I would have to bring $700 cash payment in order to be seen for my follow-up. And keep in mind, they tell you when you have a heart attack, you leave the hospital with a lot of prescription medication. And they tell you that this is necessary life-sustaining medication. And that if you do not have this medication, you could easily die. And so to me, when he talks about Medicare for all, I think about my granddaughter who needs me. I'm with her in her life every day. And the fact that I easily could have died because of being underinsured. And that's the system that we have today, and it's awful.
That's an extremely powerful story, and I know that there are people all over the country who have stories similar to that, and that Medicare for All is overwhelmingly popular for that reason. Once people hear about it, it is very popular. What do you think about the candidates like Joe Biden who have, let's say it outright, lied and said, if we move to Medicare for All, people will be without coverage for a span of time, you'll lose your health care? As someone who is passionate about this, what do you say to a candidate like that?
Well, I often have tweeted at Cory Booker, who's accepted a lot of pharmaceutical money in the past. I think he's paused it for right now. I've asked him, how can I get the same coverage that he has? And I guess, I don't know, I think that these politicians don't put themselves in people's shoes. Everyday working class Americans, my husband's a mechanic, we're not very well moneyed. And being underinsured is a death sentence in some cases. We had a friend whose mother had breast cancer, and she worked a retail job full time and had very good coverage at her job. She was fortunate. And she survived her first round of treatment and surgery, and she lived for 14 years after that. At the same time she received her diagnosis, she had a friend who worked at the same retail store who was part-time, and she did not qualify for insurance. The state medical coverage for Maryland paid for her to have surgery, but would not cover any chemotherapy or radiation, and she was dead within 3 months. So to me, when Joe Biden is saying these things, he's being dishonest, and I really just wish that he would run as a Republican. I think that's where these people belong, is in the Republican Party.
Well, and that's what some people have said, that he's using GOP talking points. And then we have others like Senator Kamala Harris, who seems to maybe be talking out of both sides of her mouth. She said she would abolish private insurance. Then she said, oh, never mind, I wouldn't. Do you think that people like this, like the Kamala Harrises, the Elizabeth Warrens, will they sign this pledge, in your opinion?
No. I think that they're dishonest. I have great respect for Senator Sanders because I believe, I don't know him personally, that he has very strong beliefs that he stands up for. I would never vote for Kamala Harris. I didn't vote for Hillary Clinton in the last general election. I voted for Jill Stein. I think Hillary Clinton's a war criminal, and I would never vote for someone like that. And I think that if the Democratic Party insists on forcing another corporate candidate down our throats, that Donald Trump will be reelected. Kamala Harris argued that the state of California would lose money losing prison labor. That is slavery. It's modern-day slavery. She argued that parents of truant children should be incarcerated. Joe Biden was against segregation. Like, we don't have a left here in America. Elizabeth Warren was very disappointing. She's claimed Native American heritage. And when women were being gassed and have cold water hosing at them at Standing Rock, she was nowhere to be seen. So in my mind, these people may talk the talk, they don't walk the walk. And I think they're fake progressives. And I think that a lot of American voters see that. And I think that's how Trump got elected last round.
That makes a lot of sense. There's an overwhelming sense that a lot of mainstream media seems to be trying to paint Medicare for All specifically in a bad light, to paint it as socialist, to paint it as unattainable or unpopular. The statistics, the polling shows that Medicare for All is popular. What do you think about the propaganda that's out there in the media and how that affects people's views of Medicare for All?
I think that propaganda is a very accurate term used to describe that. I've seen on MSNBC and CNN when I'm channel flipping the news broadcast, they look like horror movie advertisements talking about how you'll lose your insurance and no one will be able to afford medication. In my family, we're Swiss nationals as well as U.S. citizens. And in Switzerland, nobody is denied medical treatment. It is taken for granted that this is a human right. A lot of Americans think, oh, well, you might have to wait 8 months to go and see a doctor. This does not happen. I have friends who live in Canada, and they have better access to health care than we do here.
Definitely, and I've spoken to, very recently out in the field, spoken to people who do have other dual citizenships. One guy from France. We were actually speaking to a Trump supporter, and the Trump supporter said, you know, look, all the people in these socialized countries are all dying. They hate their health care. And the guy turned and said, well, I'm from France. I love my health care. Yeah. There's so much misinformation out there. Any final thoughts you want to leave the audience about Medicare for All, about Bernie's speech, about Bernie in general?
Sure. The only thing that in my ideal daydream of what the speech would have been today would be the part about paying for this out of the Pentagon's budget. Because I think that if you ask most Americans if they would rather our tax money is going to arms deals with Saudi Arabia or health care for American families, hardworking American families, I think that most Americans would prefer that we have health care coverage for each other.
Hope you enjoyed that last video. Hop on over to statusquo.com where you can sign up for our email list and become a member for as low as $5 to $10 a month. Membership is how we grow. That's statusquo.com/join. And remember, join our email list so we can grow the revolution with you.